Thank you. Good morning. To answer two questions. First, we investigated how cities in Europe can measure, monitor, and analyze spatial patterns of housing affordability. That is to say, the ratios between price of rent or price of property and several measures of income. And also, one question was how we can provide across European cities for policymakers some insights on this key priority of affordability. We particularly had in mind some initiatives such as the Partnership on Housing of the European Union agenda that pushes for an improved knowledge regarding affordable housing. And we did so on case studies in Poland, Spain, France, and Switzerland in this short project. One idea was to reverse the common approach we usually have on property markets when comparing cities. The approach is often limited to benchmarking and price comparisons between capital cities. It is one thing to benchmark the cost of a two-bedroom apartments in capital cities and major economic centers to accommodate the need of travelers and executives. This is the idea behind Mercer Cost of Living Index, for instance. It is another problem to assess what it takes in terms of resources for residents, in terms of income, in terms of time of work to buy or let an apartment or a house. And this is what we tried to do in this project. So if I had to pitch our main result, I would say that first, housing costs exacerbate differences, inequalities, and segregation. The affordability gap is detrimental, especially to the wider middle class that have to move to the remaining affordable places of functional areas. Affordability is not simply structured according to the classical center-periphery geography. This is more a mosaic that is contingent to local submarkets, local policies, local built environment, local income structure. But moving to suburban and peripheral areas of functional areas, this affordability gap fuels profitability and housing wealth accumulation also. That is the reason why in the report we provide analytics on profitability of the rental market alongside with analytics of affordability. Because it has to be put together. So we use data from various and heterogeneous sources to do so. Like DAO, I'm not sure that big data is appropriate because it's misleading in many ways. We did not have to deal with massive data the way computer scientists consider it in terms of computation. Our problem was unstructured, harvested and messy, unconventional data, which is only one side of the issue. So there is a gap, a data gap, a lack of harmonized data to map and monitor affordability. To cope with this, the report brings insights on how institutional data, such as transactions, can help and bridge them to other kind of unconventional data to provide a cost-effective and harmonized data collection effort. Unconventional data, if I may stress that, might originate from institutions, and there are plenty. Taxes, real estate agents, websites, transactions, local tax rolls, parcel data. But one thing is that they are not originally designed for socioeconomic and demographic research. And this is the key issue of the problem. We incorporate this kind of data in research, whereas such data sets have not been designed and documented to do so. So to bridge the gap between institutional data, transaction data, harvested data on the internet, we harvested web-based marketplaces and real estate advertisement. We compared the data because we consider they were interesting proxies to build analytics on the markets. And basically, we analyzed local markets, so we had to deal with local data. They were structured in many ways. Some came as latitude and longitude. Some came as zip code geographies. Some came as parcel level geographies. Some came as municipal or LAU2 geography. And we had to bridge them to make them comparable together and deliver them in geographies that are useful for policymakers. If I could just highlight a few advices that we may have for policymakers at the end of this project. First, data harvesting is costly in terms of human resources especially. And scrapping is an interesting method. It has to be understood. It's a very costly method. So gathering data for real estate market in European cities is possible, but it requires resources. But one issue will be to closely monitor the relationships between rental markets and ownership markets. For instance, in Geneva, Warsaw, Krakow, Madrid, and Barcelona, there are by far the least affordable functional areas for ownership. And Paris and Geneva are not affordable in terms of ownership, but this is mitigated by the rental structure in Geneva and in Paris and in Avignon because of local regulation. And one idea would be to closely monitor the relationships between rental and ownership. A last issue would probably be to develop targeted analysis on how to maintain the right to the city for the middle class. And this is a slippery issue. It's often addressed by pushing for more provision of housing under the assumption that offer and demand will regulate things and more provision will help control the prices. This is not true in many cases. And what occurs is that new provision of housing is brought to places where prices and affordability is low. That means that you have to produce costly houses in places where housing is costly. That's it.